what's going on, because sometimes we get so caught up in the ideology of the ideological battles that I don't get to know what is the truth. And that's where I am at the moment, and what's very hard for me as an American, because of the work that I'm trying to do is and taking responsibility for several hundred years of oppressing and enslaving a whole population, kidnapping them from their homes and bringing them to our country and making them create our economy and taking away any kind of family, and it's not, and the trauma that has been going on for generation to generation, which I'm starting to understand as I listen to you about why Black people and the African Americans in the United States have, there's certain truths, things that happen in their life and why it's happening, because of the generational trauma that has never been dealt with in our country, and the people in our country are not taking responsibility. So as I hear you, I feel like what your work does, and I feel like I have to do this, but I don't know how I'm gonna do this all, but it's just to hold your truth as I come back to America to deal with the ongoing trauma that our nation has done to a whole nother group of Americans and has yet to be resolved. So I want to thank you for just sort of doing that, and I'll try to hold your truth and do that too, because I'm a Jew and I'm also an American, and I have to hold multiple identities. I'm a woman, and it's like, so how, I'm just, thank you.
Can I add one piece to the description of occupation?
Sure.
It's just another dimension that you didn't mention, because I think it's so painful and harder to explain to North American audiences. I worked in a Palestinian school in Jerusalem for 10 years, and it was on what's popularly known in the world as East Jerusalem. And the children that I taught lived in clan houses. So their grandfather would have built the house, and all of the male children marry and have their children in that house. So there could be 100 people living in one house. When they talk about demolishing a house, it's like a house where anywhere from 50 to 100 people could be living in.
So the whole clan is displaced, so you can't even go to your family as a refuge.
That's one aspect. Kids used to come into school, some of them afraid, having dreams every night, is my house going to be just demolished? But worse than that, in my opinion, was that I started to identify a trend in the strategy that the occupation used in East Jerusalem, which was they would kidnap one child. They would arrest one child from these gigantic clan families, and you're allowed to keep them for 2 years in prison without any charge. And then what would happen would be, if the family had a lot of influence or connections or money or lawyers, they would try to get the kid out. But then if they did that, the Palestinian side would be like, hey, are you collaborating with the Israelis? So, and Israel knew that, everyone knows this, so they just sat there quietly waiting for those 2 years to be up until they could get their kid back.
Wow.
And they don't need any charge. And so what I started to understand, and I never understood this before I worked in this environment, was they're all walking around fearful for their kids. Some of my students would leave school, put on their phone, leave it on speaker, put it in their pocket, so if they got picked up by the military, by the border police, they would have called their sister who was at home, and then they would hear the sound of the military in their back pocket. And this is in Jerusalem, this isn't even here. That's where, as if the occupation doesn't hold, because they have more rights in Jerusalem. So occupation is a system of fear.
Sure.
So there's all these strategies were meant, but what it does, one kid snagged from one house and 10 families are like, you stay home, you stay home, you stay home. Everyone, shh, quiet. It's terrifying. What silencing it is. Children from within.
Thank you.
We have a different kind of